So, Mark, for that short period of time that I was up at
Yeah,
Lake
couple of days.
Champlain with you, you told me how aggressive the smallmouth bass were
When they were on bed,
when they were on beds, right? And they were biting at your bait, but they weren't eating it. They were just moving it off the beds, right?
Yeah.
I don't really get it.
I think the conversation, you said, well, they're eating when they're on beds, and I clarified that they aren't eating it. They're defending their bed, but they aren't eating. And I think that that's an interesting fact that a lot of people don't know. So I think that that's something that we should talk about in today's episode. The truth about bedding smallmouth.
Okay, the truth.
The truth. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Mark Fisher Outdoors, everybody. I'm Mark Fisher.
I'm Megan Fuller.
Right. So you were saying, I was telling you how the smallmouth were on beds, that there were still some. There weren't that many that week. But you said something along the lines of they were eating the bait.
Right.
And I kind of clarified for you that smallmouth, the reality is that a smallmouth bass, the amount of time, it's really pretty incredible. A male smallmouth will move up, and typically an area that they are making a bed in is going to have gravel or sand mixed with boulder, basketball size, or even smaller size boulders. So the idea is if there's a current, they'll get next to a boulder that's on the down current side. They want to clear off that sandy area,
Okay.
but they've got an area, a big boulder or number of boulders to protect themselves from current and to have a side to, and they'll fan off the bed. So think about this from a standpoint of a calendar of the amount of time. So the male smallmouth moves up, finds a location,
Okay.
creates the bed. Then the next step after the bed is created is the females start moving up, and the male will go out and try and herd a female onto the bed. Okay.
Like mixing species here. Okay.
Yeah, not herd meaning push a female onto the bed. They'll literally swim up next to them and kind of nudge them, nip at them, and get them to try and swim over to the bed. And the female will either oblige and follow and go with them, or will swim off saying, no, I'm looking for somebody else. And so depending on how long that takes, the male will finally at some point get a female to come over to the bed. At which point, then the female needs to go through the process of laying the eggs, and the male fertilizes the eggs.
Okay.
Okay, so they'll pair up together.
All right.
And then once the eggs are laid and the eggs are fertilized, that male is now going to stay with those eggs. And that's going to take, in 54-degree water temperature, that's going to take an average of about 10 days for that male to stay with those eggs and guard those eggs.
Okay.
And during that time, it is ferociously guarding those eggs, meaning any other small fish comes by, any other fish comes by, it's going to attack that invader into the nest, okay? Which is why, from a fisherman's standpoint, we can throw a bait in there. They will come, if that bed is in 10 feet of water, they'll literally come up 8 feet to get that bait. If it's entering that zone, they'll come up to eat it. And you can then turn around, catch it, throw it back, throw a different bait in there, and they will attack that one. I mean, they will. I've literally had situations where I've caught the same fish off bed 3 times in a row.
Wow.
Using different baits. They're just that aggressive. The interesting part is they are not eating. And that's the difference. That's the thing that you said. They aren't eating those intruders into the bed. And the evidence of this is I saw a lot of beds on Champlain. I'm looking down there and yep, there was one bed that literally had 3 different dead species of alewife or bluegill or perch or whatever it was, dead fish laying around the bed. They aren't eating those fish. They're attacking them, defending the bed, and the carcasses are literally laying around the bed. This smallmouth, this male smallmouth, a male smallmouth, is going from the time it cleaned off the bed, moved the female to the bed, guarded the eggs for 10 days, and then has to guard the fry, the little black bass fry that are little tiny, look like little tiny black specks, and that can take up to 20 to 26 days for them to get big enough before they can be on their own. That smallmouth is not eating at all.
This is like over a month-long process.
And we have been in situations where over the years, where when practicing for a tournament and going out and looking at bedding smallmouth, where we've caught a fish, and I'm giving you this story. We caught one, it was 3.5 pounds, it had a little black mark on the tail. It was very obvious to distinguish this fish. Went back and finally the tournament was a couple weeks later, and that fish had, where we had weighed it and said it was 3.5, caught the exact same fish 2 weeks later, and it now was under 3.25. It had lost that much weight, body weight, in that 2 weeks, because again, they aren't eating, okay? But they are still just as aggressive. So from a standpoint of fishing for these fish, you can catch them. They're very aggressive on the bed because they're defending. And then I tell you what, and I had this happen on Champlain during practice. There was a day during practice when I was just getting bit all over the place. And it wasn't that that I was just happened to be running my bait over beds. It was that I believed that those fish were coming off the beds. And so now after 20-something days of
hungry.
not eating, now they were eating. They were just, I could basically throw anything, any color, and if it was moving in the water, they were just feeding up after that extended period of time where they just had not eaten at all.
So do you think they were like saving those dead fish?
No, they were
later?
just
Okay.
they weren't being saved for later. They were just evidence of the fact that during that time, and I don't know why it is that nature is doing this, but during that time they are not eating. That's not a priority. That's not a priority. And what they have one task to do, and that is to spawn, to guard those fry, the eggs, and then the fry. Once they've done that task, now they go back to, okay, I need to take care of myself and feed up again. But I think it's really interesting, and I don't know that a lot of people know that there just is not any actual feeding going on, and yet they're still so catchable because of how aggressive they are when they guard that bed.
I didn't know it.
Yeah, well, and you now you know it. So, guys, we appreciate you tuning into the channel. We hope to give you information like this every Monday through Friday, and we hope that you would subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Stick around tomorrow for another episode. We appreciate you tuning in. Take care, everybody.
Stay channeled.